All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are looking at evaluating algebraic expressions using proper order of operations. So before we get into all of this, I just want you to try two review problems. I want to make sure that you can evaluate each of these expressions using proper order of operations. So try both of these first two examples, and then when you come back, I'm going to quickly get through to the answer for each of them. Okay, so I'm assuming at this point you have paused and come back, and I will just quickly breeze through this. So I need to do 6 divided by 2 first. It's in parentheses, and division comes before addition. Then I need to do the addition in parentheses because I still need that symbol of inclusion done first. Then exponents, then multiplication, then addition and subtraction from left to right. 33 minus 16 is 17. For my good friend B down here, I'm just going to shift the work up here so I don't have to scroll anywhere. I need to simplify my numerator and denominator first. So up here I get 2 times 16 minus 4. And on the bottom, I'm at 13 minus 6. On the top, 32 minus 4. On the bottom, a 7. And on the top, 28. 28 over 7 is 4. So hopefully those review problems went well. If they didn't, talk to your group members about it. Maybe come talk to me about it. Okay, so what is the difference between this order of operations and what we've been doing before? What's the difference if we got variables in first? Well, what I want you to do is I want you to quickly just take a look at what we have here. Look at 3x squared plus 1. What is the proper order of operations for this expression? Meaning, if you were evaluating it, what would you do first? What would you do second? What would you do third? Now, I know it's hard to figure out because there's a variable in there, but imagine there was an actual number in for that variable. Well, how would you go about it? Well, from my perspective, there's no symbols of inclusion, but there is an exponent, so I would figure out what x to the second is first. Then I would do 3 times whatever you got there, times that x squared, and then I would add 1 to all of that. That would be the proper order of operations, but I would need to figure out what x squared is first. Think about it here. What would be your proper order of operations there? Try to figure it out. Maybe think about it, write it down, and then come back. I'll tell you what the answer is. So looking at this one, we've got multiple exponents, so I would need to do a squared and b squared, figure out each of those first. Then I would take whatever this was, and I would multiply by b and c, and then I would take whatever this whole thing was, and I would subtract whatever I got for b squared. So it doesn't really seem like it's any more complicated, but especially when we're dealing with positive and negative numbers, it can actually become pretty complicated pretty quickly. So let's get some numbers involved. So the key is, I like to make sure that when I'm plugging in something for a variable, I just always use parentheses around whatever I'm plugging in. What that helps me realize is if there's a negative sign, or later on in this class, if it's not just a number you're plugging in, it helps me keep things oriented in my head. So here, now that all I've done is replace my x with a 2, but I've kept that 2 in parentheses. And again, the reason I like doing it that way is because now I can clearly see that I need to square just the 2 and not the 3. I need to do that first, then I can multiply, then I can add 1. A lot of people make the mistake of multiplying the 3 and the 2 first. Don't do that. Again, think of what we just did on the previous page. What would your order of operations be for this expression if you didn't know what number it was? You would square the x first. So make sure that when you plug in 2, you square the 2 first. Try this one with -3 on your own, pause, and then come back. So at this point, I'm assuming you've done that. Again, order of operations, square the negative 3 first. So you end up with positive 9. Because negative 3 times itself is positive 9. Multiply, then A. Okay, again, that's another reason why I like to use parentheses, because if you were to ever use a calculator, if you didn't use parentheses around that negative, your calculator would not be very pleased with you. Okay, I've got 2 more on the bottom. What I want you to do is try both of these. Okay, so again, keep in mind your order of operations. And then I'll come back and reveal what the answer is. So pause, try them both out, see what you get, then come back and check your answer. So I'm assuming at this point you've done that. First time through, we're going to plug in 1, 2, 3. When we do that, following order of operations, we get 1 times 2 times 3. I got rid of the parentheses after the point where I didn't really need them. I just put them in there initially, and it was helpful for my exponents. Multiply first, and then subtract. Now, the negative sign one is definitely trickier. I'm going to do that work up here, but you can feel free to do it below the problem, certainly. So this time I'm plugging in negative 2, negative 2, and 1. And negative 1, excuse me. And again, here's a big reason why I like to use parentheses. Because I think it makes it a little bit clearer what's happening. Negative 2 squared, I need to do that first, that's 4. I need to square this negative 2, but that doesn't affect that subtraction sign. I can't do a negative times a negative here, or double negative, because that negative needs to get squared first. So I'm just subtracting a positive 4 over here. Multiply, I get 4 times negative 2 is negative 8, times negative 1 is positive 8. So I get 8 minus 4, which is 4. Got to be really careful with positives and negatives when you're plugging in and variables are involved first. That's all I've got for today. Hopefully you got something out of it.